Tule elk were brought back to Point Reyes in 1978 when 10 animals, 2 males and 8 females, were introduced to Tamales Point. Tamales Point is a peninsula that juts up into the ocean. On one side is the Pacific Ocean, on the other side is Tamales Bay. It is completely fenced in its southern border, so it is a closed population of elk. These elk, although theoretically they could swim if they wanted to, they are pretty much in practice a fenced population. It is 4 square miles in area. We do think from the historical records that Tule elk did exist in the Point Reyes area, and they were extirpated in the end of the 1800s in sort of the late gold rush era. They were hunted to extinction here. In all of the state of California, probably fewer than a dozen remained, and all of the elk that you see here and in the other 22 populations in California all come from those animals. There are somewhere around 3,700 elk left in California, and those are all the Tule elk that are left in the world. The park is really excited about the relocation of elk from Tamales Point to the Limantour area. Because the Tamales Point herd is basically an enclosed herd, the park was really interested in restoring what is a dominant native herbivore to the wilderness ecosystem. And in 1998, 45 elk were captured here in Tamales Point, trucked about 10 miles away to the Limantour wilderness area, where they were quarantined for 6 months and then released. And they are now doing fine. There's 36 animals out there, and we hope there's a burgeoning population. And one of the best ways to monitor a wild population is to use radio telemetry collars. And this is an example of one. This is a brand new one. They don't look this clean after they've been on an elk. This is the radio box, and it emits a frequency that is particular to this collar and this elk. It goes around the neck of an elk. This is the antenna that emits the radio waves. They're often color-coded so that when we're just looking at an elk, we can tell which animal that is. And this animal would be called red, blue, red. This is a radio collar for an elk calf, obviously much smaller. There's what we call the box, the radio. It emits its own frequency. Here's the antenna. The advantage of this collar is that it not only stretches, and you have to have a stretchy collar with a calf that's growing a pound every 2 days, but you also would like the collar not to stay on for life. This would get much too tight, much too soon, and it would hurt the animal. So this is designed to fall off after 6 months to a year. So what we use this for is to follow an animal around and determine its life history. We want to learn how long it lives, where it inhabits, what kind of habitat it prefers. We'd like to find out if it does die, what it dies of. All these things can really give us clues as to the health of a population. In an adult elk, we'd really like to find out if she has calves. We want to find out how many babies she has. That will help us predict what happens to a population. Is this a population that is on the upswing? Are we seeing a lot of calves? Are a lot of these elk cows successful in having offspring? Or is this a population that's either stable or perhaps declining? All of these things can give us clues as to what we might need to do to manage. The way that we monitor these radio collars is with a receiver and an antenna. And researchers go out into the field basically and listen for radio collars with this equipment. They will tune it to the frequency that they're looking for and then point this antenna in a 360-degree circle until they pick up the loudest signal. When they do pick up that signal, they know that the collar is somewhere in that direction. We can either use something called triangulation, where we get a number of these fixes and then we draw lines and figure out where the animal is on a map, or in a habitat like this where we don't have a lot of trees or shrubbery, high shrubbery, we can actually get a good visual location on an animal. You've got a harem of a group of females and calves, and you've got one male, the bull. He's the animal with the antlers. And the reason that we have this sort of a group, this setup here, is that we're very early on in the rut, or the reproductive season. And he is a young male, interested in mating with any of the females that come into estrus. Usually at the height of the rut, you'll see a number of males close by, hanging out nearby, occasionally challenging him. And then what you just heard there was a bugle or a whistle. Some researchers have studied that the bulls that make the lowest pitched bugles are the most impressive and intimidating, and that low-pitched bugle comes from a large chest cavity. Therefore, the largest animals have the lowest pitched bugles, and that's, another signal that you can hear from miles away. They eat about 3% of their body weight every day. There is a particular disease of elk at Point Reyes called Johne's disease, or paratuberculosis. That would have happened at the time that the animals were introduced here. And that is a disease that is not commonly found in wild elk. And we have one of the only populations in which it has been documented. For 70 years there were no elk in Marin County. And in 1978 they were brought back, and we now currently probably have 450 here.